Hello, YouTube! And a special hello to Lady to Chains' dog. A special greeting for you. My apologies for the video cutting off. I ran out of storage space, so the video cut off, so I'm going to have to try to make this video short to try to cover everything that I can cover, but basically this is the interior of Mr. Gray, my first van that I lived in when I first started this recent round of journey 6 years ago. But you can see this is the center console, and it had the computer, the setup here. I had some storage under here and a microwave. I had two drawer sets here, one on this side and one on the other side for storage of clothing and other items. Let's see. Did go out to eat at Chinese restaurants even back then. That's I pigged out every so often. Spent a lot of time at the inlet and on the beach going for walks. And on my off days, I would actually make road trips. In this case, I think I went down to Miami and was actually at Hallover Beach. I think this was Hallover Beach. It's a nude beach. I wonder if that's a naked person. I don't think I'll zoom in. But, yeah. And then Miami Beach itself, I was also, did a lot of driving around. I don't know if I have a clip of the video where I drove through the streets of Miami, which was pretty cool. It's the Art Deco district. And of course back to the inlet where, you know, there was this big cool truck with the, what is it called? With the monster truck type stuff. Anyhow, this was my Mr. Gray being hauled off, and that was the end of Mr. Gray. And I think this was a picture of me actually, as I said previously, when I kind of lived in the bus. This is what work looked like. I had to ride the bus every day to get back and forth to the post office, the Jupiter post office. And had to do that for quite a while without a vehicle. So I was able to save up between... oh, this is the portable battery pack. I think that's when I got it. I got it, I think, from the Jupiter. Might have been the Jupiter store, maybe. They had the last unit on sale, and I bought it for, what was it, $69. That was my battery pack, which I still have, but the battery's kind of dead. I'm going to try to see if I can't get it fixed. Let's see if I can get this thing to focus. There we go. It should be focused now. And I may fix that if I can get a new battery to put back into it. Well, I was able to sell my old vehicle, Mr. Gray, for about $600. And between that and saving up some more money, I bought this, it was a 1989 B1200 van. And it was a Shorty. It was a Shorty van. You know, I guess they shot it as Shorty. It was a full-size van, but a short van. And it was kind of junky. Had, I think it had close to 300,000 miles on it. And this is, let me see if I can go maybe this way to show what the picture of the van looked like. So these were some pictures of how the van looked when I first got it. It was rather beat up and junky looking inside. It had been a mechanic's van, and he had gutted it out and was using it to haul all his tools and also the greasy stuff. It was nasty inside. So that's what the van looked like when I first got it. It was just terrible. And I was like, well, I needed a van that I could afford, which I bought this van for, I think, about $800 or $900. And then I proceeded to go ahead and convert it really quick. So I ripped apart all this carpet and stuff that was inside, and basically had to put the van together and try to fix the leaky roof. So I gutted it out. Had to get new tires, because it had tires that were about to pop. And this was like one of my first nights out camping in the van. I think this was at that Walmart. And I bought this little extra speaker thingy just for entertainment, just for louder sound. And see if I have some pictures. I had bought the seat off Craigslist to use as a bench and also kind of a bed. I think I got it for like $25. See, I got transferred the curtains over, put in the ice chest, put in the console, started to set up a workstation, This van was configured to be an office and was actually very nice. It had a desk that I could work from. You can see that was the Living in a Van Facebook page. I had my computer set up. I had the new laptop set up here, the one that I'm still currently using, and a printer with a scanner and a fax machine. So I was actually able to function as an office. I also left the front seat up there and turned it around and had the child booster seat for my son when I went to pick him up. And my daughter could ride the back seat, you know, so it was pretty cool. My kids actually loved this van because it was a really nice configuration and was fairly roomy. It wasn't too much more room. Well, I'd say it felt like it had more room than the current setup, just because the bed didn't take up everything. And I had brought the drawer units here for storage. Used up for clothes storage as well as the other thing. Patched the roof real quick. Terrible job with Mondo. Set up the charging port for USB and 12-volt devices. Once again, I moved the house battery system into this new van and still had charging going through the inverter with the weird hookup where, you know, I did 120 volts and converted it down to 2 to 6 amps. So you can see this is what it looked like from the side door. Had the desk, had the bench here, which this bench sadly didn't fold down to become a bed, but I would just lay across like this and sleep on it. And that's how I lived in there for a while like that. But this is what it looked like from the other side. So a really nice sized office. And the back has some storage for clothing. I had thrown down some cheap carpet I had bought from Walmart. And where the holes were along the doors, I used them as storage for, you know, oil and other stuff for the vehicle. Once again, the bungee cords went across the ceiling to hold the boogie boards. And, of course, more storage in the doors. These are the door panels, with the door panels removed. So it had little gaps inside. And I just simply stuck stuff in there. And you see lots of storage. More storage. It was so big, I think this is actually a pot you could cook, you know. That's how much room there was in the door. This is like inside the door gap. And this is the boys' park, where I would park often when I wasn't working, because it was near, you know, it's like 15 minutes away from my job. So I hung out there a lot. Even though the police chased me away in the other van, I would come down there with this van because they didn't recognize it. But I didn't really camp overnight there. I would just park there during the daytime, which, you know, is allowed. And this is what the sunset looked like at the Jupiter Inlet. Actually, it wasn't sunset. This was sunrise. So this is just Phoenix. That was the name of this van. I called it Phoenix. Just some more beach shots here. But we're going to jump real fast through so you can see. These are all the van pictures here. I did go to Gold's Gym and I don't know if this is World of Warcraft. I don't know if I told you in a previous video, I used to play World of Warcraft at the Bois Park with my son. So this is one of those sessions where I actually had my computer and I set my phone to share Wi-Fi, to become a Wi-Fi hotspot. And I was actually able to play World of Warcraft with my son while sitting there at the Bois Park. Or the Boys Park, however you want to pronounce that. Oh, what happened was Phoenix had a mechanical issue, and during one of the trips to pick up my children in Brevard, because I had to drive like 300 miles, it was like I was making like 600 to 900 mile round trips every other weekend to see my kids. That's what it took. To go pick them up, bring them down to where I was staying, and then go back up and drop them off. And that's what I did pretty much every other weekend while I was living down in Palm Beach Gardens, and I had to commute all the way up to Brevard County. Because it was like a trip there, get the kids, come back, do stuff around here, then take the kids back up there, then drive back down here. So every other weekend, I think I traveled 600 to 800 miles to be able to see my kids. Well, there was a lot of wear and tear on a car that already had 300,000 miles. Sadly, Phoenix did not last very long. Phoenix gave up and died, and I had to get another vehicle. So I ended up selling Phoenix to a metal scrapyard place, and they actually paid me $600 for it, which wasn't bad. And I used that money, plus some additional money, as a down payment for a car. I could not find a van. The Phoenix had broken down while I was up in Brevard, and I needed a car right away. So I had to go to one of those, like, really bad car dealerships that kind of sell you junky cars and rip you off. They didn't have a van that was handy, and I needed a car that could get right away. And because I needed to try to fit in with this area, you know, Jupiter area, which is kind of a richer area, I couldn't really get like a really junky car because I didn't want to stand out too much. And I needed a car that would be okay on gasoline. So I ended up getting a BMW. And the plan was to get the BMW and at least make it back down to Jupiter and try to get back to work. And they had like me on a crazy payment schedule that I could never ever make. And I was like, well, I'll just try to make the payments as much as I can, and then when I can't, they can come haul this car and take it. So I wasn't planning on fully paying for the car. I was planning on giving it back to them, you know, if I could get enough money saved up to buy another car while I was down here, or a bicycle to ride to work. So at this time, I had actually moved. At this point, I was actually not living in Palm Beach Gardens. I had moved closer to Jupiter. I was actually living in Jupiter, renting a room from one of the house. You know, some guy had a room that I rented. So I shared a room with one other person, really. It was a big house that was about to be foreclosed on, and we were renting, you know, rooms by the week. So I was paying like $100 a week to stay there, and had this BMW, which I tried to configure for living in, and I will tell you what, living in a car is horrendous, especially if you're not able to rig the car for full-time living. I couldn't like rip apart the back seat and take it out and make a bed down there to lay down. So I had to try to sleep in the back seat. And not only that, I had to hide everything so it didn't look like I was living in my car. So that didn't last very long. Yeah, I remember now the sequence of what happened. I bought the BMW, tried to live in it. I lasted 3 days. And then I went on to, hey, Herbert is added a story here, so call out to Herbert. Hello there. You're on Facebook, so you'll know exactly when I'm recording this, which is New Year's Eve. But anyhow, the BMW I could not live in. I lasted 3 days, went on Craigslist, got the room, and gave up the car, and you know, they ended up taking it later, but that's a whole nother story. Meanwhile, I did, you know, shower and stuff at Gold's Gym at this point, and this is what my living room looked like. You know, I would just hang out there and watch TV with air conditioning and a big screen TV and nice hot shower, so it wasn't too bad. Once again, lots of beach pictures, the van being built. Then I ended up moving back up to Brevard County because it's a little personal, but my sister, my older sister, is actually extremely ill. She's at stage 4 cancer right now. And she was at stage 4 then. They didn't think she would be around that long. And I ended up getting a, I guess what they call a humanitarian transfer. So I had a transfer up from Jupiter up to Brevard County, and I was still working as a mailman. And I was there so I could kind of be there to help take care of my other sister who has some issues, you know, is in a nursing facility. So, you know, now that we're doing this video and stuff, if you guys are watching this, please keep my sister Psalm in your thoughts and prayers and pray for her. The doctors have been, you know, saying that there maybe have been a change to her status again. The cancer had gone into remission, and right now they're not sure what's going on. So just some prayers her way would be greatly appreciated. You know, she's taking it in stride and continuing to live and move forward, and that's all you can do, really. I haven't really told you guys, but maybe I will go ahead and tell you a little bit about one of the reasons I'm actually down here in South Florida with Maurice kind of risking everything. Maurice and Maurice and I are actually working on some projects that have to do with cancer prevention and curing cancer. So that's the real reason I'm down here. It is kind of a crapshoot in that we've got to make this project happen very quickly, or, it's not going to happen. So I'm here to work on a cure, if you will, or, something that may help with people who have cancer, because I've already lost so many people. My mother died of cancer, my father died of cancer. Now it looks like my sister has cancer, and I'm not sure about my own status, which is why you always see me at the VA hospital. But I think that's enough sad personal stuff. So let's move on. But you can see Phoenix ended up croaking, and I had to have it hauled off. And then, when you have to buy a vehicle with no notice, you often end up with a piece of junk, which is what ended up happening. I managed to save up some money and borrow some money and spent $2,500 on a, I think it was a 1999, 2000, I think it was a 2002, 2003, maybe 2004 Pontiac Montana. And I thought this was going to be a good vehicle, but it turns out these Pontiac Montanas are notorious for having overheating issues. And I didn't know that until I got the vehicle, because within 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks, yeah, the van died. After me spending $2,500 for it. I did not have much luck, but Hannah the Pontiac Montana, once again, got converted really quickly, put in the child seat, and I had to quickly convert this. And some of you saw some of the older uploads that I put up recently just to show you Hannah. But this was how she looked. She was just a regular standard minivan. And I was staying at a friend's house and started to build. I actually had a refrigerator in the vehicle, believe it or not. It was a regular 120 volt. This is the same 2-burner stove, electric stove, that I ended up not using. But this was the build of Hannah, the Pontiac Montana. And you can see that I built a little back kitchen galley here, and it had the stove cooking. This was looking similar to Little Blue 2. This was the predecessor to Little Blue 1. And I built like a bed system, a platform system, had the shelving, started to do what you are starting to see now, that has, I guess, been reborn or recreated with Little Blue 2. But this was an actual portable kitchenette that could be lifted in and out of the van. So you could take it out of the van, and your van would function as a regular van. You could put it in there, and you had a nice little kitchenette that also became part of the bedding system. So Hannah was pretty cool, and it had a refrigerator. And this was all actually powered, could be powered by my inverter, my 750 watt inverter. The only issue was, because I didn't have a huge enough battery pack and solar charging, and this thing did use a lot of power because it was 120 volts, you could only run the refrigerator while the vehicle was driving and running, and you were pulling energy from the alternator. So I gave up the idea of using the refrigerator, even though it did work. It worked in theory, and I was able to use it for a while, but then I was like, yeah, it's not worth running the vehicle. It would always die, and I put ice in there and froze ice, and then just used it as a cooler, and had food in there with frozen water. So this was how I was planning on taking the items and setting it up for cooking, and I was just formulating plans on how to build everything out. So you can see initially the galley didn't really have the stuff set up for use. It was set up for storing the cookware item. Then you'd park and you'd set it on the top bench up here and use it to cook. This is, you might have seen this before in one of the teaser pics or whatever for living in a van, because I ran some of this. This is actually pictures from Hannah, the Pontiac Montana. And I call it a she, because, most of my vans tend to be female, except for Phoenix and Mr. Gray. So I guess I have both male and female vans. I don't know how I can tell if they're male or female, but I guess it's just how they felt when I was inside them. Hannah, the Pontiac Montana, was a female van and looked very female-ish. So it had a really nice bed system. It was a queen-size bed set. Had a decorative lamp, and was my first time to get a little bit fancy. I had an air conditioner, one of the portable air conditioner, 12 volt that I made, and people kept saying it wouldn't work. It did work. I froze that night and had to actually turn the unit off. But how it worked was you had ice in there, and you had the 12 volt fan that blew the ice, and then it forced the air up through these vents right at you, and it was cold. Spent the first couple test nights watching Dexter in the van. So I had a TV mount. It wasn't really a TV, it was actually a computer monitor that was mounted here on the console, and then I had my computer, you know, running the signal here. And eventually I actually made this TV so you could flip it in and out and go through the front door, you know, to the front cab area. So these were, you know, predecessors to Little Blue 2, and they were mostly test runs. I only had Hannah working for about 2 weeks before she started developing overheating issues, as you can see here, trying to get to work. Got to the point where the van, I couldn't drive it because it kept overheating, and I ended up living on a bicycle. No, at this time I was still living at my friend's house, who was letting me stay there. Their house was going into foreclosure, and they let me stay there until it went into foreclosure, and the bank came to repo the house. But I had bought a bicycle and was riding a bicycle to work every day as a mailman. I had to ride, I think, a couple miles to and from work. Here was modifications to Hannah the Pontiac Montana with by mounting the monitor onto this board and then having a screw there. It could swing back and forth like a little hinge. So this panel here actually swung open and closed like a door. So I could climb over the console into the front cab area without having to get out of the van. See how it works? You could watch TV on the big monitor if you wanted to, or you could watch it on the built-in screen. This was me testing the van out, Hannah the Pontiac Montana, camping out at one of the car dealerships. There was good Wi-Fi signal there, so I was actually able to stream stuff through my computer. And, you know, just a rainy morning. You can see I still had, at the time, I don't think I had put up curtains yet. I was still using the, what's that stuff, the Reflectix. And basically, I Velcroed everything up and down and rolled them up out of the way when they weren't being used. The reason I switched from Reflectix to regular curtains is it's just, I think the curtains look prettier and are easier to deal with. The Reflectix were kind of a pain, and they kept falling off in the Florida heat. You know, everything was held up with Velcro, and it would get so hot in the summer, the Velcro would melt, and the glue would kind of fall off, and it would fall apart. Okay, so Hannah the Pontiac Montana died, and then I had to quickly rush to get another van again. Yeah, that's Denoy's life, you know. Always looking for a new van, which is what happened, essentially. But I ended up picking up Little Blue 1. So here you can see, this is Little Blue 1. She was a 2004 Chrysler Town and Country. And it was just a regular van. You can see had a little bump here in the back, but otherwise pretty good. A little bit of rust, some spots. That's Hannah in the back, not running. And these were the damages she had that I ended up fixing some of it. Did a little bit of body work. She came with this bench already in the back that could be a bed already, and I don't know if I kept it like that or I cut it and did some stuff to her. Yeah, I ended up eventually cutting it and fixing her up. She had, I think 430,000 miles on her when I bought her. So she got reconverted to become a houseable van in 1 or 2 days. And this is what Little Blue 1 looked like, sleeping inside Little Blue 1. You know, Little Blue 1 was basically, had the interior of Hannah the Pontiac Montana. I ended up taking that bench and splitting it in half with this area here. I made like an L-shaped bracket. And at that time I still had my office because I was still planning on doing office type work on the computer. And I had a little desk area working here, toaster, still had the microwave, still had a lot of stuff that ended up getting removed because they weren't used that often. This is where the battery, the power after the inverter was actually hooked up, came to this multi-plug outlet that was underneath the vehicle. Well, underneath the bed. So this is all underneath the bed. And you can see I have soccer balls and all sorts of items that seem weird to carry in a van, but I carried them because I saw my kids every other weekend. So we would take these things to go play, at the park and stuff like that. But you can see the curtains and stuff. They're just like little blue. Now they were done with these. They're normally used for regular windows, but I hammered them flat, straight instead of U-shaped, and just ran regular, real window shade, window curtains and stuff on it. And you can see the rigging with the power, and basically this was a little blue one, which you guys here on YouTube have probably never really seen. You've always seen only little blue 2, but this is what little blue 1 looked like, which was eventually adapted. And when you're building out a van for the first time, you really don't quite know how it's going to turn out, so you tend to move things around until it becomes exactly the way you want it. So little blue 1 went through a lot of modifications on where drawers went, where the table went, how the bed was laid out, and how I ended up getting rid of the solar panel because it really wasn't useful and it wasn't charging anymore. I still had the microwave at the time, but I used it only when I was hooked up boondock somewhere. Had actual power, 120 volt access, didn't really run it off the inverter, and I could make popcorn and stuff. And of course, little blue 1 had some issues. Gas tank was having issues. It turned out, I don't think it was a gas tank. It was bad gas or something. I'm not quite sure, but I ended up having the gas tank taken off and a new gas pump put in by a mechanic, and I guess I got it running sort of, and that was right before the bad accident that ended up destroying little blue 1. But little blue 1 was pretty cool. It had a little working console here, so instead of a desk, this was a little area I could work in the back on my computer, or my son would sit back there and he could play video games. It even had a drink holder right there. But here you can see he's playing Miss Pac-Man. Well, I don't think he was playing. I was just demonstrating what he could do and how I made the drink holder. And it folded down out of the way when you didn't need it while the car was driving. So it had a hinge that would fold down. So it was pretty cool. And you can see that was where the battery pack was, right there on the side. This video is about to run out of space, so I'm going to have to wrap it up. And I think that pretty much covers all the vans. This was a construction idea I had that's kind of silly, but maybe one day I will build something like this. This was a little blue 1 with the optional camper top, where it had a bed and a little hut area there. You could sleep in it upstairs. And I never did build this out, but this was just a concept. And the idea was to build a topper for the van. I think it looks pretty funny. And definitely would make it stand out. You can see here I had the bicycle mounts for holding the bike. So it was designed to fit on, and I might build something like this even though it looks so funky. But it was just a concept that never got built. And there you have the history of living in a van, pretty much. My first time experimenting with the Wi-Fi extender. Little blue 1, on trips, tire blowing out, and reconfiguration of little blue 1 to become little blue 2. You can see, for those of you who say, hey, how come you don't ever cook with propane or a butane system? Actually, I did have one, and I never used it. I actually gave this particular one away to one of the van dwellers I met, because he didn't have a cooking system. So since I prefer to cook with electricity and never really used the propane system, I gave it away. It's not that I don't know about them and don't know how to use them, but I just prefer to cook with electricity. For me, being in the city, because I'm hardly off-grid, and even when I'm off-grid, I can cook while I'm driving to the location, or I just run my car, or try to cook with solar power or something. I never really use the butane or propane systems. Although, just a little heads up, you may see me cooking with a butane system very soon here, as I prepare to do some very special videos for you guys that are curious. They'll probably be running on the Patreon first, but I may eventually run these videos on YouTube, where you actually see me using systems that aren't van related and don't require electricity trying to go totally off-grid. Anyhow, this is when Little Blue 1 was actually built. I started to build out Little Blue 1 and was trying to figure out how to do the bedding, try different types of cushions and pillows, where to put the drawer units. This is before everything was actually fully configured. You can see parts of Hannah was brought in, parts of Little Blue 1, some similarities in the rear. Little Blue 1 had the bicycle racks, which got destroyed when I got rear-ended, where I actually couldn't even walk. I was like bedridden. I was like, thought I was going to be pretty much almost unable to walk for the rest of my life. So, you know, it's a miracle that I'm actually back up and functioning. But I do still hurt from time to time because, you know, people with back injuries, it never really goes away. But you can see how I was starting to rig out the bedding system, which is still current. And the reason the seat is there again is because of visitation with my children. So always the build had to have this so I could pick up the kids. But you can see it looks very similar to Little Blue 2 because essentially I took the components from here and moved them almost directly into Little Blue 2. It was a pretty much perfect fit because the two vans, the Grand Caravan and the Town & Country, are essentially the same vehicle. And I was able to easily port all of this stuff that was built into Little Blue 1. This is the back rear bench system that had been built that could convert into the bed. And you know how I built everything. You can see all the pictures here, and there was lots of storage underneath the seat. It had a bench system. It had the kitchen. The only thing it didn't have in the back was like you couldn't really sit back there and drive because it didn't have like seat belts. And I did put the drawer sliders and stuff to make things go smoother. So this was the beginning of Little Blue 2. Had a burner stove, a single electric burner, which I never really used and ended up getting rid of. Was devising different ways of hooking up the power systems, which went under the hood. But you can see Little Blue 1, when I got it, was 408,000 miles on it. And that's pretty much it. In retrospect, that is how we got to living in a van. My accident happened, and that was it. I'm out of time, so thank you for tuning in. Until next time, everyone, take care. God bless you all. You're in my thoughts and prayers. I hope you have a safe, wonderful, and productive new year, and that all your wishes and dreams come true, but most of all, that you stay safe. Take care now, everybody.